Hi, folks. Nick Tucker here with the Historical Fencing Guild, and I will let you know we are operating currently under a tornado watch. Not a warning, a watch. So I am watching a large storm cruise north, 5-10 miles west of us. So we will see. We will hold on best we can to keep the program going. Should I duck out, you have my sincerest apologies. Now, before we get into the goodies, let's talk about me paying my bills, because I do need to. The Historical Fencing Guild is first and foremost made possible by the amazing Patreon members, who I will be setting up a thank you board for them very soon, as part of some things I want to do to thank my Patreon members. I would not be able to afford the different trainers that I use to teach people or to review, so you can find out if it's worth spending your money or not. I'm also made possible by sales of my book series, which I will grab here because apparently we had some funniness. The Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear. All three of these novellas, all three of these books are in plain, simple English to make sure that you can learn the fine art of self-defense in a way that is simple and adaptive for any health challenges you may have, because that is something that we desperately need. Let me just do that. I'm also made possible by sales of my other books, such as the Big Stompy Robot Score Rulebook. I'm a game designer, and Hybrids: The Sons of Gods, the role-playing game. That's available through fundmycomic.com. Now, enough of that. We have news you can use and stuff to hear. So let's hear what we have. First and foremost, first through the door is Bladed Thesis. Hello from Foxy and I. We are stuck at work. I do not know where you work as employment, but I'm glad you could catch what you can through this program. I do reserve the right that I may have to call it early because of the tornado/storm weather that's going on very, very near to me. But we're going to talk about, we're going to do some stuff, because I love parallel development styles, and I want to talk about that, but we'll keep going. And we've got hello. Cindy Kemp is joining us in the chat. Hey, Cindy. And again, congratulations. Cindy Kemp just completed 2 of her exams in assorted Eastern martial arts styles involving Fan and Tai Chi. One of them is over 100 forms. I want to say 180 forms. That is very impressive. And I love to see people developing and building themselves up. I get to pack up for QuadCon Des Moines tonight. Excellent. Woot! Yes, celebrate. Get it on, guys. There is so much going on right now. I need a drink. I'm sorry. I'm a little excited. We have a lot to discuss, and let's get into it. I recently saw a little clip, and I want to say it was discussing French single stick and French longsword. Oh, yes, here we go. Before we get into it, I tested on Keegan and Gagi the Wu style slow form, 108 movements. That is fundamentally amazing. So I am so proud of you, Cindy. We are all so proud of you. And I know what's wrong. Hold on, guys. Hold on. I know what's wrong. Zoop. Let's cozy up a bit. I thought it looked a little dark in here all of a sudden. No, it is incredible to memorize both physically and mentally 108 positions and be able to perform them under the stress of being observed by trained individuals. That is a huge deal. My background had something called authorizations. When you're in the SCA, you go through tests. And to be able to fight a certain style, you have to prove that you are safe, that you know the rules, and that you can do it safely. You can do it from the assorted positions you could be in. It's a lot to take in. But something like 108 specific movements, that's far less freeform than anything I've done. So I am incredibly impressed. And we're joined by Trelena Bachman. Hello, Magpie. How are you, darling? I hope you are doing so well tonight. I haven't gotten to hear from you in ages. Let's see. Thesis says the weather is warming up here, so hopefully we can do some outdoor training. Yes. The weather is gone completely mad here. We're going to be swinging from the 60s to the 20s and back for the next 10 days, while Mother Nature seems to go through some type of bipolar episode, or perhaps more manic depressive. I think it's farther than bipolar, but we're going to work through it. And go Cindy. Go Cindy. We're all proud of you. That's awesome. And she says, not quite ready to test on Wan Sin, cloudy fan form. I know the movements, but I feel rather awkward with the last few. Woot! See, that's beautiful, because what you're seeing here, folks, and I love celebrating the accomplishments of others, isn't just, yay, I did something, but it's I did this, and I'm working on this. As long as you are working on this, it's it means you're progressing. You're going. I just saw a comment come through that almost broke me. Authorizing in SCA wasn't nearly as complicated. No, I did want to take the Marshall test, but I was not allowed to due to shenaniganry. So we'll see. It's like Winter is mad. It leaves the room and then comes back and says, and another thing, then slams the door. Yeah, basically, I'm sorry, the whole sky is absolutely blasting with electrical pyrotechnics out there. So it's really cool. Normally, I would be sitting out on my front porch watching this go by going, yeah, like the 4th of July, because I'm that guy. But attention deficit has nothing to do with my way of being. I don't know if you can hear that rumble go through, but well, it means it's about 5 miles off. That's okay. It can stay 5 miles off. As long as it keeps trucking in a straight northward bound, we are awesome. But it's really great to see people are looking to develop and expand their styles. Now, Independent Creator Directory, hi. They said, don't forget to drop your like. So yes, please like and share this. This program is probably the most educational that I do as a series. I try to keep this where we're always building people up. The motivation and the creativity you guys hold is so uplifting to me. And frankly, a lot of times I need it. I'm stronger because of you guys. Johnny says, to pass this test, you need to show that you know the rules, and so do I. A full commitment is what I'm thinking of. You wouldn't get this from any other guy. Oh, I'm gonna keep on scrolling. Foxy says, good job. Never gonna give you up. Okay, sorry. I will roll with the Rick roll any chance I get. Cindy says, next I'm supposed to learn the fast form, similar to the slow form, but some tweaks and much faster. That's fascinating. Please be very careful with your with all your hypermobility issues and stuff. Take it careful. I know you can do this. Cindy says, thanks. Tomorrow high is 54, then 56 on Sunday, but Monday drops back to the 40s. I think we have 60 then 20 overnight, then 50 something, then 30 overnight. It's insane. And tune in tonight. Tune into the Historical Fencing Guild tonight at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Eastern. I love when she does it because it always makes my brain hard reset, folks. But, all right. We got to talk some stuff because there are some things I really personally enjoy. I have found I'm going to have to look more into Aikido because I never studied it, but I've studied most of the pieces independently from other sources. Yee. So, for example, Joe staff, boken, dagger, knife. There's a fifth one, and I know I've played with it too. Are all aspects of the weapon systems of Aikido. Because I learned elements of Tai Chi, elements of Hapkido, and CPI, Crisis Prevention and Intervention, aka Hug Fu. I've learned a lot of parallel stuff in the years, and I find it interesting. I want to talk about the Joe staff for a bit as a concept, because when people say staff, they think of the eyebrow height or taller staff, a fighting staff. Usually, the term the bow staff comes out. But there is a shorter variant of staff that's 4 foot long, referred to as a Joe staff. Now, not many people know this, but that was also very early in the forms I studied out of assorted books when I was a teenager, because those were the books that were available at the library. And they were difficult. Now, the textbooks of the 70s that I had access to in the 80s and 90s that my rather poor library had weren't the clearest thing. It could get the job done, but it wasn't easy to read. The language was a little archaic, and the drawn images were highly detailed, but not terribly useful. So you really had to puzzle it out. Once we get back to consistent 50s, I'm going to try to get into my snowflake sort of form again. Excellent. I've studied a lot of variants of essentially a 3 foot to 4 foot stick. So 1 meter to a little more than 1 meter. You know? And I say that because it isn't talked about as much. But, so I was scrolling through and I shared it on the Facebook public, the Historical Fencing Guild public group. Again, yes, some people remember that there was a private group that literally is just who's bringing chairs, who's bringing pop to the meetings, that kind of thing. It wouldn't do the vast majority of people any good and could risk doxing some people. So that's why there's a secret group. Anyway, the length, though, is interesting because single stick is a classic training style that you hear a lot about, especially in saber fields, because basically it was the least expensive way to teach a lot of people how to sword fight quickly and efficiently in a style that basically keeps you alive. It ain't pretty, and it's not elaborate, although it can be. Now, the French apparently were the last to teach greatsword techniques through a single stick fencing variant that Hutton, as in world famous saber master Hutton, the guy they named Hutton Sabers after, put them in his book. And it's very fascinating to look at because it's a constantly whirling sword style. And I've seen that in later French styles like Lacan, where it's constant motion, but instead of being a very thick, very stout. It's a longer, so it is about 4 foot Joe staff length, and it is handled in a method very similar to what you see in Lacan, that's attached to I want to say Savante, as a means of training. So it's a lighter, faster style meant on continuous movement. I find this delightful because I can look at it and I can see elements of Meyer, lots of wheels and reels and good stuff like that, uh, and other elements that you find in staff forms. But it's very constantly moving, which means it's a training style. And I do want you guys to understand, when you're looking at some martial arts, okay, some martial arts were not developed to be fought necessarily that way in actual combat. By constantly keeping your stick going, boom, 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 you are building up the muscles, the muscle memory. It's a way of combining drills and sparring and timing lessons all at once. But it would be very exhausting to do if you were actually fighting. So I find this interesting, and this part is my my observation, because a lot of times we lose sight into the background around a style. For example, the modern approach to martial arts is you learn an open-handed style and you learn a weapon style. Okay? This is a very modern approach, with the exception of short knives. But as a rule, the body mechanics you learn in a given style of more modern developed and more modern taught does not apply to the study of weapon-based styles, or weapons-based styles are heavily frowned upon because weapons are bad. I think that comes from there was a period in the late 80s where people, during the ninja craze, where a lot of people became genuinely afraid of ninjas. Took me a bit to figure it out on a phone. Oh, okay. Hi, Foxy. Great to hear from you. But so most martial arts dojos, selays, training areas, went away from a lot of the weapon styles for a long time, and now they're reintegrating. And just like my opinions on certain movements in Tai Chi, you have to understand the Chinese approach, what seems to be from a generalist survey observationalist, to be integrated in oh, hello, great to hear from you, it's been a while. In first you learn how to make a weapon go, and the same muscle memory that you'll use for the weapon should be usable out of the weapon. So you'll see some slight quirks in motion and blocks that look ornate or pointless from a martial arts standpoint. It's like, why are if you're throwing a high punch, why are you doing this? You see this a lot. Well, it's because if you have a spear, it's the same motion. You're teaching the body the motion and how to fight with the motions you learn with the spear there, and it's okay because it's going to give you a high cover. I do this a lot, and this is entirely Sword Sage's fault. Well, now a little bit of John Miner, but mostly Sword Sage. Because he was a Wing Chun guy when we first started, before he really fell in love with Bagua. And Bagua is interesting, but I found it easier to defeat Bagua than I found to fight the more straightforward Wing Chun when I was dealing with it from a weapons approach. And trust me, I'm going to get back to where I'm going. But understanding the training, that open-handed training of the motion is how you train somebody when you have a lot of students and you don't have the trainers to train somebody. The reality is very often, unless you are a sponsored instructor, unless you are, and even then, the government's like, here, train these people how to do this, and they give you the tools. You have to improvise a lot of the time, and it's funny to say that because it seems like always people want to take training as something that's underfunded. Can't go wrong with the slap. You're right. The slap's a beautiful thing, but understanding motions from this is a weapons-based style. It's why I laughed hysterically when after I'd been fencing for a while, somebody did parting the wild horse's mane, and they were talking about how this is an energy redirect, and you hear this lovely chi-based flow. And I said, okay, what? Or you're drawing a gin out of a sheath, and you're clearing it so that you don't stab yourself by getting it online. No, I'm like, here, try it. Here's the sword, here's the sheath. This all folds into things I want you guys to think about as we are doing more training. Train from deployment. What does that mean? Once you have learned to shoot, most ranges, you can go to a range and learn to shoot. Pop, pop, pop. Put the gun on the table. Pop, pop, pop. When you want to learn to shoot defensively, you have to learn how to clear your holster, how to come online to the target, make sure your stance is in place, and pop, pop, pop. Most ranges won't let you draw from the holster because that's the easiest way to screw up and have a accidental discharge. Yes, there was a bright flash of lightning. You probably heard my son. But why does that matter? Where are we getting with this? We need to train from deployment. So this is why I really want to work on ways to have sheaths for the weapons we train with, so that you have to clear, sheaths and belts, so that you have to clear for the draw. Since we are switching to the rapiers, which I have just out of sight, so I'm going to grab one for my point. I have several. I have to find them all, but I have several. Okay. Part of the reason I switched to these guys is that they can be put probably in a chunk of PVC. Now, PVC is much more expensive than it used to be, but I should be able to measure off, find something with the right inside diameter to shoot these into there and rig a baldric or a harness or something else that, guys, we're not just going to train with the weapon. We're going to train with the weapon in a sheath so that you're learning how to make it go and that you can put away safely. Because that is part of the art that's being lost. Think about every Olympic fencing bout you see. En garde, are you ready? We're ready. Salut, salut. And go, right? You don't want that. Now, why does that go back to the French great sword fighting? And why did it interest me? Well, because one, I want you guys to learn certain styles. Oh, your gin has a PVC scabbard that I've been working on here and there. I can't wait to see how that works. I'm serious. If you're willing to do a video demonstrating and showing when you have a finished product, maybe talking about your making, it would be really appreciated. We may just have you on again to do a special. There will be, as I get mine set up, I'll do a recorded video that I'll release, just so I'm not quite caught up in the chat, so I can, evergreen content on how to make trainers for these guys, because these are very nice, relatively low-cost alternatives. They're not perfect. They have some distinct flaws, and I have some longevity issues with them potentially, but we're going to see how they do. And if they turn out to fail miserably, I'll know. But we'll find that out. I'm sorry, I have a cat hair on my nose. That being said, getting back to the French. Now, I want to stop and qualify something. I will often speak of the French when I'm talking about swordsmanship or military stuff. And in America, the French get a really bad rap because of how fast in World War II the Germans steamrolled over them with Blitzkrieg, and how fast and how fast the French government surrendered. Now, please remember that the actions and attitudes of a government may not be representative, and most often through the history are not representative of the people. And the courage of the French resistance, once the government kind of caved, is legendary. So we mustn't bash that too much. Further, when one looks at the number of battle wars the French were in, which were a couple hundred, and the number that they won, for a long time, they were very good at what they did, and they should still be respected, especially when it comes to historical training. That gets lost in an American bias that I don't think is quite just. Now, that being said, getting back to the style, I shared the video. I encourage you, if you're on Facebook, to watch that video. It is a constant motion. Yeah, the French know how to do a protest. That's why it hasn't been covered very much in the news. Madame Guillotine is being discussed once again, and I simply sip my drink and let it go by. But the style is very constant, and yes, constant motion will give you a constant defense at the cost of constant stamina burning. But if you use something like that as part of training, and when you're actually sparring or you're fighting with real weapons, you can monitor your stamina just like any other resource, and you can use it, but you will have built it up because you spent all, I could do this all day is very much a real concept. So I do believe constantly and consistently in the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in combat. In any aspect, anytime you're having to use physicality to defend yourself, if it's in sport, if it's in self-defense, if it's in occupation, the more you train and the better shape you're in physically, the less likely you are to get hurt, especially if you keep a very alert mentality. So I want you guys to look at it, because the other thing is, when you look at that versus the Joe staff, you see some differences. It is fought very much. Where is my... I have a custom trainer for just this sort of situation, or I had a custom trainer for just this sort of situation. Where is that little dude? Aha, I think I see you. Yes. Okay. I love this because this is both a very long sword and a very short sword when I need it to be. They fight as though the grip on the weapon most of the time is here. So they're standing and they're doing a lot of this action and then a whole lot of wheels. Okay? But upon hit, they're already going. They have basically an emergency block where they can widen their grip and they go right back to this. Very strong. Now, most Joe staff I've seen is a bit wider, and it's fought more like half or 2/3 of a bow staff. Bam, bam, bam. Great sword. But you can see where both styles from literally opposite ends of the world are learning to make something very useful in that length, a 4-foot piece of walking stick, mobile. Further, their opinion is because it's a lighter stick. Remember, force is mass times acceleration, right? A little bit of science there for you. If you want to hit somebody really hard and you have a heavy stick, it doesn't take as much speed to put a lot of force onto it. Or you have a light stick and you go very fast. The French, for this system, settled on a light stick that goes very fast. Given the physicality of many of the people in this group and the limitations they're facing, I find that interesting. So I may be researching a bit more into that style. But like I said, I know many people have doubts because they say, the French. It's like, okay. In fencing circles, however, the French are one of the great schools. You have the three big classically recognized schools of modern fencing being the French, the Italians, and the Germans. These are of Western fencing. Now, the Russians have some amazing shamshir fencing, and it's not the talwar, although it looks like the talwar. The Indians and Pakistani both have similar systems, as well as the Arab nations, that region of the world. The Middle East have a lot of systems. But when we look at modern fencing, these are the three. Spanish isn't discussed as much, in part, I think, because outside of Spanish does not get the appeal from the sport guys. You'll find it in the historical guys, and you'll find it in the more practically minded guys. Because part of Spanish is that your weapon ideally is not shaped the same dimensions as everybody else's. It can be, obviously, but Spanish rapiers tended to be longer. The cup hilt rapier is a fairly legendary weapon. The scaled, the clamshell rapier, very elegant. The way it evolved into the Bilbao, which obviously it's my favorite sword, and that's a broadsword. My favorite sword is technically a cut and thrust broadsword. That's saying things, guys. It borders on being a short sword a lot of the time. But understanding the history and application when you look at a style allows you to start to understand what it does, which is really neat. So I'm talking a lot and I'm very passionate. Because it allows you to see the root of what's going on. And once you can, and yeah, you don't want to be rooted. You don't want to be rooted because being able to move is an excellent thing. You want to stay light mobile. I, back in the day, was a very mobile fighter. As I am losing weight and losing enough weight that I can start building back up the musculature under it, which has been a real issue of late. I hope to gain that mobility back, because with the mobility, you can choose better your engagement. So, in the words of Kelly's Heroes, I've got 2 speeds forward and 3 in reverse. I like to know I can get out of trouble faster than I got into it. This is, what you don't want to be rooted if you don't have to be. However, if you have to be rooted, you need to understand how to work with that. Exactly. You're a more rooted fighter that has strengths and weaknesses. But a lot of it boils down to understanding ranges. And when you can establish range, you don't have to move nearly as much because why? You can't hit me. You aren't a threat. Oh, I'm pretty fast. My runaway keto is pretty good. And that's no there. See, I love it. Johnny and I are on opposite hemispheres of the world, and we both have the same approach to martial arts. In that, I developed a style called Run Like Beach, wherein one flees like they're having a good day at the beach. Whereas Johnny does the spicier version, which is Runaway Keto, which involves running away and possibly stopping to kick large objects at your opponents because he's a footballer. And, man, you don't want to get kicked by a footballer. But jests aside, I want you guys to look at styles, and when you see them being practiced, ask yourself things like, okay, how does this translate to a weapon style? What weapon style would work well with this? Or if you're seeing a weapon style practiced, how would that work if it's unarmed? And what are the pros and cons? So this whirling French style I find fascinating because it will certainly maintain distance around you, assuming you have the space to use it. It's a big weapon style using a big weapon. I would say it would combine very well with a basic rudimentary understanding of spear use, or coupling it with something like Wing Chun Long Pole, which is using your spear basically like a gigantic rapier. Being able to do these things will keep you understanding as a student and as a teacher. Thesis says that's one of the differences between Foxy and I. She is rooted in power, and I am movement and grace. And that's why I think we need to possibly consider the right reach weapon for Foxy. I think a shortened pole arm may be something that would eventually be something she could use greatly well. Like I said, there are some things everyone should be able to know how to use. And I consider them the 5. A knife, just a simple knife. You should be able to make a knife go. Okay? A 1 meter stick, which is something roughly cane size. Oh, yeah. I prefer this technique, strategic advance to the rear. That's another classic. That is what I evolved, Run Like Beach both evolved from and back into. Strategic advance to the rear is best applied before the conflict occurs. That is one you get to do going into the conflict, which is the it is the strategic. I get tactical and strategic switched up. Strategic, okay. The tactic of refusing a blade is when I'm fencing and I know someone's stronger than me, I don't allow tacto. I refuse to let our blades be in contact any more than they have to because I know they're strong enough to move my blade away. The strategic version, the next level up, is refusing a conflict before it happens. Acknowledging things that could be an issue and simply not choosing not to engage them if you're not in a position to actively win them. My dad taught me a lesson a long time ago. You only engage a threat with overwhelming force or no other option. Those are the only times you engage. One thing you want to avoid desperately is a fair fight, because outside of the realm of sparring and testing yourself, in any practical application, a fair fight is one you can lose. And in practical loss, it is not the loss of a point on your standings or your position in attorney, but your life, limbs, possessions, the safety of the people you love. So you have to keep, the concept of applied cowardice as an active thing in the back of your mind. And to be aware that as soon as you have a chance where the threat is delayed, if it can be neutralized by leaving, you leave. Don't go looking for vengeance. Don't let anger or ego get a hold of you. If somebody's starting a fight and they trip and fall and they look, alive, get the heck out of there. Thesis says, I have a short staff I am planning on adding a spearhead to that I got for Christmas. Okay, I dyslexia that, not you. I have a short staff that I am planning on adding that beautiful spearhead I got for Christmas to. Maybe we'll see if she likes it better than the 6-foot spears I have now. Okay, there is, I want to say Cold Steel makes it, and it's like $10. I got one for my wife. It's in the garage somewhere. It is a Cold Steel polypropylene spearhead. It threads onto like the wooden mops. Now, I encourage people to train certain lengths. You want to train, I favor short staves, basically the length of a mop or a broomstick, because these are the weapons you're most likely to have access to. Why do I drop something? Why do I like this particular trainer so much over so many of the other trainers? Because this is very close to, in length and relative function, a kitchen knife. So, why do I say that? If you're going to train in weapons, it seems only logical that you train with weapons that you either carry every day or are likely to find. That means in America, in the realm of firearms, having a basic understanding of how to operate a Glock-style pistol, regardless of model, just a basic understanding of a double-stack 9mm or a AR platform rifle. And you don't need to be good at it. You don't need to be great at it, but basically understanding how these operate. Probably a pump shotgun, a Henry 22, something like that. Oh. Okay. Well, friends, we have a tornado warning. Now, I will put a message out, but I'm going to abide by that. This room is in the western-facing part of my home. So I'm going to adjourn from this program because the likelihood of the channel being dropped is pressing. So have a lovely night. We will discuss this again next week. It is very likely I'm fine because it's not even raining here. And it's only for 15 minutes, but I will message as soon as we get an all clear up on the Facebook public. You guys have a lovely night. Stay safe, everyone, and I will see you next week.